What is up, cool cats of the interwebs? It is your girl Haley back at it again with another episode of the pre-review crew. As always, let's quickly skim through my guests of the evening. You know them already if you've listened to us. So let me introduce them super fast. We have Brennan.
Oh,
And we have Mike.
so
So, if you listened to last month's episode, you know already that we previewed Alan Wake Remastered Far Cry 6. It's still spelled wrong on our doc, by the way, and House of Ashes. So now let's review those games to see if they stood up to what we had to say about them and what the critics had to say as well. We're going to kick it off with Alan Wake Remastered. It's a single player game action adventure developed by Remedy Entertainment and published by Epic Games. It came out on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series S and X. Too many letters to remember. It released on the 5th of October, and the top critic average is 81, with about 82% of critics recommending it. And I would say that this isn't far off from what we had hoped.
yeah, just reading the reviews and looking at the scores that this game got originally when it first came out. This is about, yeah, like you said, what I expected. These were around the same scores it got when it first came out, so it really doesn't surprise me it's getting these kinds of scores again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people mention the fact that, like, yeah, it looks nicer, but it's, it's not like it's blowing everything else out of the water. So, like,
Yeah.
the only thing you really can compare it to is, what's the game like, And I feel like people's opinions of it aren't going to change necessarily. Like, you may be able to look back on it with nostalgia, but when you're actually playing it through again, maybe you have a more clear idea of, like, yes, this is okay. I'm seeing a lot of 8s out of 10s, to really simplify it. Like, that's not a bad score by any means.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm seeing people. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, oh, they even said, like, this is a remaster, it's not a remake. They are just going to make the game nice for people to revisit who haven't gotten to play it before. So I feel like the scores are on trend with what we assumed, because they didn't fix anything gameplay wise that people had an issue with way back when, and I'm perfectly fine with that. That leaves the game literally to the original game. So if you hated this one part then, you're gonna hate the part now, but it at least makes it a little bit nicer if you want to replay it in the modern age.
Yeah, if you never got to play it.
Yeah, and that's what I feel like a lot of remasters are good for nowadays, is just a better looking port to bring it to an audience that may have not been able to play it in the past. And I'm even reading one review from EGM by Michael Goroff. It says Alan Wake Remastered does what a great remaster should. It honors the game's original artistic direction while enhancing it with modern technology, specifically in the form of volumetric lighting. So, yeah, I mean, extrapolating from that, it's like, yeah, it's pretty good, especially in terms of, like, on a remake standard. Even if just comparing it to other remakes for a second and not anything else. I mean, yeah, it does seem to take on the same artistic style, which is always important, especially to the older fans. But at the same time, like, it generally looked better. And even, I don't know if we were talking about this last time, but on their website, they had one of those little sliders that you can go back and forth to see, like, what the original versus the new looks like. And I am a sucker for those. And honestly, like, it did look, pretty well enhanced in my opinion. Again, I'm not a fan of, it's not that I'm not a fan, but I am unfamiliar with Alan Wake. But in my opinion, it seemed like it looked pretty good.
I feel like with spooky season coming up, it's definitely one that everyone should check out, because I feel like it definitely has a cult following. And I hope that Remedy sees this, and I hope that, they put out a new modern Alan Wake game, or maybe one set in the universe, or just, I don't know, like just go back. Go back to his story, go back to his town and put another game in this genre because Remedy makes Control, and I think we touched on that last time, that the two worlds are connected. So I'd like to see them dive more into the world of Alan Wake through their new games and through potentially a whole new game. But it's just cool that, you know, they haven't forgotten where they've came from and that they decided to give people this.
Yeah. Because I played it way back when it first came out at a friend's house, so I never really beat it. But I will say, if you're looking for something spooky, this is a really good game for that. Like, we're saying it's a cult classic, and it's a classic for a reason. It has its issues, but I thought it was still a really good game.
Little spooky, but if spooky isn't your genre and you would prefer a first person shooter with lots of blood and gore and an alligator that can eat your enemies, I have a game for you.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
called Far Cry 6 or Fari Cry 6
I
because
fixed it. I fixed it.
Brennan spelled it Fary, and then he
I did,
fixed
but I
it,
fixed
and then
it.
he fixed it.
Just
And just for the viewers, we have a document of what we're going to talk about, and it was on the document. It was misspelled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't let
For
Brennan live that
about
down.
It's like 2 months and it was misspelled for it, but that's fine. Everything's
It's
okay.
okay. It's okay.
Fixed
Everything's been amended.
Yeah, we fixed that shit. But anyway, so Far Cry 6, it's a single player, multiplayer, first person shooter. It's developed and published by Ubisoft Toronto and, of course, our favorite company of all, Ubisoft.
Yeah.
It came out on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series S, and X. It released 2 days after Alan Wake on October 7th. Right now, it is sitting with a top critic average of 77, with only 74% of critics. Oh, I take that back. Looking at OpenCritic right now, 75% of critics
Oh.
are recommending this. And honestly, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, from what
Yeah.
I'm seeing, if you liked Far Cry before, you'll like this. It's people are just
Yeah.
saying it's more Far Cry. Like at the end of the day, this is just more Far Cry.
I mean, yeah, and like that's I don't know, we called that. We totally called that. Like, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I read somewhere that you can't throw shovels like you could in Far Cry 5, so this is an instant pass for me. This is an absolute regression
Sorry, if you
in
can't throw
terms of
shovels in your game, we're not playing it.
yeah, no, that was easily the best part of Far Cry 5. The little that I played of it was just seeing how many outposts I could take out with just a shovel.
Only a shovel.
Um,
That's what real men
yeah.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, especially one with the smiley face on it is great. But Far Cry 6 does not have the shovel, so it's bad. You heard it here first. But more seriously, though, yeah, I mean, this is pretty much what we said. And even some people touched on like the narrative just not really hitting every note. And again, we called that before too. You know, it's they have this world set in like a dictatorship run island and there's just no commentary about it. There's just no commentary at all. Like, if anything, it's more of just like a giant joke. Even so far as to not recreate, but have a reference to one of Far Cry 3's missions where you burn a marijuana field with a flamethrower. You do something similar. Far Cry 6, I'm not exactly sure of the specifics. But I just think that's ridiculous. Like, I don't know. I don't. Eh.
So I was talking about Far Cry 6 with some friends because I have a lot of friends that are into first person shooters while I am not. And so, and a couple of people that I work with are into first person shooters as well. So here is a collective list of their thoughts. And what they've said about the game is that firefights aren't the best. Anytime you move, it basically just feels clunky, that the game falls short. Sorry, I'm trying to read my notes here. it's not a great exploration free world like Skyrim. The story is the best part, but it doesn't feel cohesive. So I sort of I don't know. I haven't played Far Cry, so I don't really know. But those are just some outsider opinions. But at the same exact time, I sort of sat there and I asked them, well, would a revamp on the same level that Assassin's Creed got work for Far Cry? And the answer was no. And the answer was no, mainly because they don't see this on the same level as Assassin's Creed. They don't see it on the same level because the game doesn't take itself seriously. So it's like, why go through that whole revamp if the game doesn't take itself seriously? It's like, sure, they can improve on the combat and the movement, but there's no use of doing a complete overhaul of the game if you're literally just going to slap the same coat of paint on it that you put on it last year. So I don't really understand where Ubisoft is going with Far Cry.
I almost feel like it's become like the Call of Duty of uh I don't even really know how to boil down Far Cry in like a sentence or two, but it's like it's similar to Call of Duty in the fact that you kind of know what you're gonna get every time, but like you said, it does slap on a new coat of paint. And again, for some people, some of these reviews are like 9s out of 10s, 4.7s out of 5s, like, but then you see, 4 out of 10s and 2 stars, because of its repetitiveness, whether it's, the enemies being rather repetitive or the main villain being kind of predictable. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like Mike said before, if you like Far Cry, you'll probably like this. But if you don't like Far Cry, you're probably not gonna like this at all because it's just more of the same.
I just
And I don't know.
sorry to interrupt you, but my question for Ubisoft is, what are you trying to achieve with Far Cry? Because uh, Far Cry doesn't come out every year, does it?
No.
Okay. So I just wanted to make that point because I was going to relate it back to AC and that, they're just burnt out. But if it doesn't come out every year, then that's not going to hold true. But still, it's like, what is the whole point? What is the whole purpose? You're making a game with a story that some people like. Some people are like, okay, this story's really great. But then you give it a really bad paint job with your gameplay, with your AI, and it's like, what is the purpose of people playing your game?
For me, because games like Call of Duty and Battlefield are usually really serious, except for zombies, are usually really serious. And Far Cry has kind of always been the goofy cousin in that, yeah, it's a shooter, but it's a shooter that doesn't really take itself seriously. Um, and I think that's kind of maybe what they're going for, is just to have this laid back, um, you know, have a beer, play some Far Cry kind of, feeling to it.
Yeah, but I feel like Far Cry, for me at least personally, Far Cry peaked with Blood Dragon when it just went completely into the ridiculous 80s action movie aesthetic. Like that felt way better to me than like having this quasi serious backdrop of a random insert random dictator here, like 4 and now 6, and I guess 5 with a religious cult leader, um, and then just being wacky and weird the whole time. I just don't understand. I kind of wish that they did make it more of I guess just I don't want to say cartoony, but just generally more lighthearted overall. I don't know. I've lost all feeling for Far Cry many years ago, and I'm not really surprised that people are split on this.
There are two short blurbs that I feel like sum up our thoughts on Far Cry. And what Ubisoft has done with the series, because I agree. I agree that with Mike that Far Cry is the goofy cousin of Call of Duty, and I feel like Ubisoft keeps toying between saying something serious and being absolutely apeshit, and they won't pick what side they want to go with. And Josh Broadwell from VG 247 says Far Cry 6 prefers playing guerrilla over more serious reflection because, quote, blowing shit up is fun, and Ubisoft just can't quite isn't just quite ready yet to give that up. And then Diego Perez from Attack of the Fanboy says Far Cry 6 is just another Far Cry game, one that desperately wants to utilize the imagery of a revolution without having anything meaningful to say about one. And honestly, I fucking agree. Last episode we talked about it with the last Far Cry game being set in the Midwest and it talking about a cult family of white supremacists. I don't know if they're actually racist. I apologize. Are they racist?
Oh no,
I mean,
I don't
they're
remember.
white supremacists, so I would assume so.
Yeah, we'll just go with that. They are very clan like. They are very cult based and brainwashing. And Far Cry didn't really say anything about that. Ubisoft didn't really say anything about that. With Watch Dogs, the latest one, set in a London that basically watches your every move during Brexit. They released that. They didn't really say anything about that. Now they're releasing this, where a lot of southern countries are going through or have been going through different revolutions, and they have the ability to say something about it. And again, they are not. And we talked about bringing politics in the video games. You're going to always have politics in video games, especially when you're talking about a very real like revolution. And I think it's a little silly for them not to say anything if they're going to take themselves so seriously. But I also think it's really stupid that you're not going to take yourself seriously. So then why not just make it a balls to the wall game?
Thanks, Ro.
Exactly. Like, why just not? Like, why do you keep like walking down this middle of, okay, we're gonna do something serious, okay, we're gonna do something balls to the wall, and you keep like teetering back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you just won't pick one. It's just annoying.
Yeah,
But
they'll
again,
never learn.
they won't, and that's the thing. It's Ubisoft, and I've sort of grown to understand that if that's one thing Ubisoft does, it's what they do best is they won't pick a side. They'll give you the player the ability to choose for yourself, but they won't say anything their self. And it's sort of a little annoying, at least for me as a consumer, because I want to see more serious topics in video games, but then how can I take a game seriously when you give me a pet rooster or alligator or I don't know, some balls to the wall bullshit? I just don't understand it. So I kind of just wish, and if anybody from Ubisoft is listening in, hi, hello, give me some free Assassin's Creed merch. I will love you forever. But at the same exact time, figure out what the main purpose of Far Cry is. Because I feel like at this point, they just make Far Cry to make Far Cry.
Yeah, that sounds about right though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they know it's gonna sell, so they're like, we're gonna take this serious topic, put a whole bunch of goofy shit underneath of it, and people will buy it because they just like blowing shit up. So thanks a lot, Ubisoft. We love you. So after I sit here and rip on Ubisoft for the 400th time, because that's all I'm good for, we are going to talk about House of Ashes. It's a single-player survival horror game developed by Supermassive Games and published by Bandai Namco. It came out on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series S, and X. It released on October 22nd, so just a couple days ago, and this one's a little bit of a bummer. Its top critic average is 73, okay, but only 55% of critics are recommending it. Just so everybody remembers, House of Ashes is part of the Dark Pictures anthology, and those sort of games are quick time cinematic driven narratives.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen such a wide difference between the top critic average and the critics recommending percentage.
I'm still trying to figure out like why exactly that is. I can't really for the life of me figure it out at all. Um, I mean, I've seen a couple of just really, really low scores, but generally speaking, I mean, going through this list, it's not terrible, you know. A lot of people are saying it's not exactly the most horrific, scary game in the series. Um, I read another complaint where it's like, I guess there's too many cutscenes or something necessarily. Someone mentioned that it was, you know, you kind of forgot that you were playing a game after a while, and to me that just signifies a lot of cutscenes. I don't, I don't really know. I'm trying to figure out like what exactly is the consensus on this.
Yeah,
I
because I'm seeing scores all over the place. Like I'm looking right now, I'm seeing like 9 out of 10s, and then I'm seeing, 1.5 out of 5 stars. So it's like weird. But like you're saying, it's very narrative driven, and I'm reading this review by Joe Craig from Dual Shockers, and they say that House of Ashes would make a better film or television series because of its layered narrative.
Hmm.
like I see a lot of people saying that this is the best one since Until Dawn. And it seems like, I mean, here's the thing. Again, we go back to this point of you can't ripe on the gameplay. The gameplay is the gameplay. It's quick time events. What more do you want? You push a button at the right time. That's all it is. It ain't rocket science. You
Yeah,
just
if you're a
push that
fan of the
button.
series, I was gonna say if you're a fan of the series and you're expecting more, then I
Yeah,
mean,
you're an
you really
idiot.
never heard of this series before.
You've been in this for the long run. It was Until Dawn, then it was Man of Medan, and then it was New or Little. I think it was called Little Hope, and then now we're here at House of Ashes. It's like you've stuck around long enough that you know what to expect, and we go back to the point again. It's a narrative cinematic game. You're going to have those long stretches of you're just like walking around or there's a lot of cut scenes and it just is what it is. It's very similar to Detroit Become Human. That had a lot of cutscenes that played more like a movie. This plays like a movie. I mean, this is a very niche genre and like style of game that if you like this type of game, you're going to play it. And if you don't like the quick time events, you're not going to play it.
Yeah, and to me, if you know, if that's the case, and in those kinds of games where it does feel more like a movie, then you're kind of putting all of your eggs in the story basket. You know what I mean? Because that's really the only other thing that you can kind of critique in a way. Um, and you know, stories, I guess, can be, especially in this format, can be kind of hit or miss. So either you know you like the story or you didn't, and that's really it. Because again, the gameplay is so minimal that even if you write that off entirely, which I don't think is necessarily fair, especially because the previous games haven't been like that. But again, you know, to me, the only thing left is the story. So it just pretty much boils down to how you feel about the narrative and how well it was constructed. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I think it's silly when I read through the reviews and people are like, "Oh, the gameplay." And I'm just like, "Do you know anything about this? Like, have you done your research? Do you not understand that this is the gameplay is the gameplay. That's what it is." So, like the things that they can improve on, um Eugene Sowa from Daily Mirror sort of points this out. He says House of Ashes is definitely the best game out of the Dark Pictures anthology with major nods to Until Dawn. Although the gameplay might primarily stay the same, of course, quick time events, the improved writing and addition of the new camera just shows that the series still has room to grow, and I'm excited to see what Supermassive Games does next. So, those are I feel like that's a solid review because yes, the gameplay is still the same. Don't hype on the gameplay if it's not what you personally like. That's not a solid answer. You can't just sit there and be like, I don't like the gameplay because it's just not my cup of tea. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It is the way it is. But you can sit there and analyze, okay, well, how's the writing? This is a narrative driven game. How is that? How is the lighting? How are the cameras? Like, does it provide that cinematic experience that it's going for? And I would like to see more people talk about that rather than sitting there hyping about the gameplay. I just, see, as somebody who is actually a fan of quick time event games, it just makes me mad when somebody's like, I just don't like that game because it's just quick time events. Okay, well, I don't like Call of Duty because it's a first person shooter, but you don't hear me bitching about that every single day of my life.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, I don't know. It just those kinds of games to me are what Telltale was for me kind of growing up. Like, I feel like the gameplay necessarily wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but you could still at least be drawn in by the story, by the characters. Um, and that's what made it special, really, at the end of the day. The quick time events are only there to sort of supplement tension and allow for the tiniest bit of player agency, but enough to make it count. Um, and so, yeah, again, it just boils down to how people feel about the narrative, how they feel about the characters. And I guess it especially helps if you're invested in the series previously. Maybe if you jump into this not really knowing what you're getting yourself into, you might find yourself disappointed. And that's kind of fair, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is one of the ones where you need to see what you're getting yourself into. Because like Brennan said, if you've never done this before, you're kind of going to be disappointed. But if you played these games before, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Like, just do your research because there's no reason to bomb a game. And I'm not saying a lot of people are. It's just like here and there, it seems like this game is getting points knocked off for the gameplay. And I don't think that's fair if you're going to sit there and analyze it on a personal level. If you're going to sit there and be like, okay, well, the reaction times felt off and it didn't make sense at this point, but it made sense at this point, and maybe they should have had more or less or something. Like if you're going to analyze it that way, make it make sense. Long story short, make it make sense. So yeah. But now, after sitting here and reviewing the games that came out in October, we are going to sit here and put analyzing our lives on the back burner and our midlife crises to the side. We are going to preview the games coming up in November. All the money I have in my pocket is gone because it's the holiday season and we are about to get some fire games. November is a little lacking, I'm not going to lie. I mean, you have Call of Duty coming out, you have Forza coming out, but ain't nobody want to talk about those because you already know what they are. So we're going to talk about some other cool games that you should purchase this holiday season. Tell your parents to spend some money on you. We're going to kick it over to Mike's pick as always. Mike, how do you say that?
Shin Megami Tensei 5.
It's a lot better when he says it. It's a single player JRPG. It's developed by Atlas and published by Sega. It's coming out only on the Switch, so if you got one, pick it up, and it's coming out on November 12th.
Yeah, anybody, for those who don't know, Shin Megami Tensei was the series that Persona came from. Persona was a spin-off of these games. So, people are going to look into Shin Megami Tensei 5 and they're going to see a lot of similarities between Persona and this game, especially the like the demons and monsters that you'll encounter. But yeah, this is looking to be a really solid JRPG. Um if you love Persona, if you love things like even Pokemon with the demon capturing. You just want something like a hardcore, turn-based RPG. This is really something I've been looking forward to ever since they announced it on the Switch like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I feel like there's been kind of it's like a soft revival of Shin Megami Tensei, especially because they remastered the third one, right?
Yeah, Nocturne.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And to be honest, I don't know much about Shin Megami Tensei other than it's the originator of Persona. And again, I've only really played Persona 4 and 5, so yeah. This just looks so interesting to me. Like I like Persona's lighthearted high school atmosphere, but there's just so there's just something so alluring about Shin Megami Tensei's like post-apocalyptic, demon-filled, dark and gritty narrative and atmosphere that I just am absolutely just drawn in by. And I've also kind of read that it's more difficult in a way. Like, could you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, I would. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, like you're saying with Persona, these Shin Megami Tensei is really, really serious. So it's like if you like the humor in Persona, you're not gonna get as much of that in Shin Megami Tensei. But if you did play Persona 1 and 2, which I know a lot of people haven't, a lot of people didn't even know those games existed. Uh, those played heavily like the original games they came from. Persona, especially Persona like 5 was just so far off from what these games used to be.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool that Shin Megami Tensei is kind of back in the limelight because I feel like Atlas has put a lot of work into Persona these past couple of years, and I feel like even the people that grew up with Shin Megami Tensei are finally getting some love, and I can always appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, and like you were saying, a lot of the systems in place are really similar, like demon negotiations to add them to your party, fusions, and fusing your demons to make stronger ones. There's a lot of similarities, but at the same time, yeah, like we were talking about, it's very different. And I've also read that it's just more difficult overall. Like the game does not pull its punches at all. Like I was reading up on the Nocturnals, the remaster, and I it just seemed like an absolutely punishing game, but one that was extremely rewarding when you finally did break out of the shell of, just dying over and over and over. I'm not gonna say that it's the Dark Souls of JRPGs, but I've heard it's really difficult. Um, and yeah, that's just cool as hell, man. I'm a fan of Persona, and like to me, this is like an instance where you can kind of go back and see what what it was all about. And even in a completely different way, I felt that way when I played Dragon Quest XI. When I played Dragon Quest XI, I saw so many similarities between that and Persona. And it's really just because Dragon Quest was the originator in most cases of the standard typical JRPG in most of their features and systems. Like
Hmm.
how trash fights are just kind of bland and whatever, and you can set everyone on auto battle, and the AI is not actually that bad because Dragon Quest actually put some effort into their AI, and so did Persona 2 as well. But then when you get to the bosses, it's more like, oh, I actually have to plan and strategize and use debuffs and buffs, and I have to use every single tool at my disposal. Otherwise, the game's just gonna steamroll me. And again, I feel like that's way more prevalent in Shin Megami Tensei than Dragon Quest or Persona. So I feel like you kind of have to know what you're getting yourself into, but at the same time, it's just cool as hell, man. I don't really know what else to say because I'm unfamiliar with the series, but looking at the recent remaster and this new entry, like I'm very curious to see what it's all about. And I feel like I'm not the only one that's thinking that right now. I cannot be the only one thinking that.
If you really want to jump into see what JRPGs are really about, like I feel Shin Megami Tensei 5 is gonna be the game for you. Because like you said, this is a harder game than Persona was. I found Persona I had to play like, I'm not trying to brag, but I had to play like the harder difficulties.
Hmm.
Because I found them a little easier than the Shin Megami Tensei's. And these just go back where Persona's kind of moving forward. How am I gonna explain this? Where Persona's kind of trying to move forward in the JRPG genre, Shin Megami Tensei is still that classic JRPG, that you could play 15 years ago.
Mm, yeah. And that's honestly, that's pretty great to me. I feel like, with the I don't even really know how to put this into words, but like as JRPGs kind of evolve over time, I feel like it is kind of important to cater to the old school fans of classic JRPGs. Again, something along the lines of like Dragon Quest XI, and how it was
Yeah.
just really similar to the previous games all the way back to its inception. And that's people enjoyed the shit out of that, and it's good. Yeah, very excited for this. I don't know if I'll pick it up. I mean, I definitely want. I'm thinking about it for sure.
Yeah.
I guess it just really depends on review scores for me personally. Just because again, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. But yeah, I'm just excited to see how this does, and I'm excited to see where Atlas goes with this in the future.
I have never played a game in this series, so I honestly have no opinion on it. I mean, it looks cool. That's about it.
All I
Yeah.
know is you need Jack Frost. That's it.
Yeah, basically.
You just
um,
need Jack Frost.
That sounds like an inside joke that I don't understand, and I feel so left out.
it is.
Yeah.
You are left out.
I hate it.
But yeah, if you really want to see what JRPGs are about, pick up Shin Megami Tensei. It's from what I've seen, it looks pretty solid. I probably won't pick it up when it first comes out, but this is definitely a game I'm going to eventually.
Holiday season, baby, because you know all those
Yeah,
games go on
exactly,
sale.
exactly. But this is something that I'm really excited about.
Which reminds me, if you're at home this holiday season and need a game to play and drain a lot of energy into, pick up The Sims. They
No,
always do great sales on The Sims. You can get packs for dirt cheap. But we're not talking about The Sims, and we're not talking about any games like The Sims because I just like drowning all my Sims in pools. But instead, we're going to kick it over to something else that doesn't involve me killing computerized people. It's called Lens Island. It's a single player action adventure game developed and published by Flow Studios. It's coming out only for the PC on November 26th.
And just a quick note that that's the early access release.
yeah,
This game is in early access, but this looked really interesting to me for many reasons. The first being, I think it's not really a secret that I'm a fan of the quasi peaceful town building Harvest Moon esque kind of games, like classic Harvest Moon. And to me, that this looks similar to that, with an added bonus of having like modular building so that you can build your own stuff, but because it's modular, you don't really have to go crazy with your creations. You can kind of make anything look pretty cool. And then on the flip side, it's kind of like a Diablo dungeon crawler at the same time. And I don't know, man. I saw this and I was totally blown away. Not blown away, but like I was just sucked in. It just looks so cool, and like reading up on the company, they've been working on this game for a number of years, and it started off as like a weekend passion project between two people, and now it's getting a full release on Steam. Oh, early access release on the Steam, but it's one of those indie success stories that I want it to be. You know what I mean? And I feel like it is kind of derivative of Harvest Moon, and especially like something like Stardew Valley, where part of the game is farming and building in a sense, and then another part of it is simple dungeon crawling. But at the same time, it looks really interesting. I like the art style. I like again the fact that it's modular building, so that anyone can kind of get their hands on it. And like I'm always a sucker for top-down action adventure Diablo-esque kind of games. I feel like this is something that blends a lot of my favorite personal style of game into one, and I'm really excited to see where they go with this and how this performs.
yeah. You described it exactly as I was going to describe it. It looks like Stardew Valley's meeting Diablo.
Yeah,
Those
right?
are just.
Like it's
Oh, go ahead.
just oh no, I was just being excited off of what you were saying.
Because I was watching the trailer and you have the person's building their own house. They're starting their own garden, and then the next scene of the trailer, they're in a dungeon fighting off monsters, and I was just like, what am I supposed to expect out of this? Like, it just went from one, extreme opposite to the other.
It just
Yeah,
looks
and like,
so nice, so clean, so peaceful. Like, I want to play this on a day where I don't have anything else to do and I just want to like lose myself for a couple of hours.
right? There's just something so interesting to me about this where I don't know, it was one of those things where I'd never heard about it, and then, I saw it on the list and I was like, "All right, what is this?" And it just kind of blew me away. And and apparently it was also delayed. It was supposed to come out earlier in November, or it was either earlier in November or I forget what the actual release date was. But it was pushed back to November 26th. And oh no, the original was November 5th, and they pushed it back to November 26th. So, I was kind of bummed about that, about a game I just found out about. I'm like, oh, now I gotta wait another couple weeks. Damn. But again, if that means extra polish, extra whatever they have to do, they need a couple more weekends to work on it. Take your time. Take your time because this is cool. This is right up my alley. And like, I feel like this would appeal to people that like Stardew Valley, people that like Harvest Moon. It's Sims like in a way, and how the houses and furniture is kind of rearranged. It just blends a whole bunch of shit together, and I'm really excited. I feel like I haven't been this excited about an indie game in a long time.
Yeah, and I feel it's gonna really cater to just different audiences, because you're gonna have those people who are just gonna love building out their own little place, and then you're gonna have those people who are just gonna want to dive straight into a dungeon and get dirty.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I think this one will be interesting. I feel like this has the potential to be uh, something very popular. Um, I want to say maybe the next Stardew. But I don't want to push it that far because Stardew has grown into a massive game. But I feel like this one will definitely be a popular one if it plays out very well. We just sort of have to wait and see. Am I logged in? No, I'm not. I was gonna add it to my wish list so I can actually save it. But if you go on Flow Studio on YouTube, everybody can watch the developer play the game, and it's cool. It's I don't know. It's clean. It's crisp. It's he just rolled. He just duck dive weaved. I don't know how that phrase goes from dodgeball, but it's
Duck,
cool.
dive, dip, dodge, dive. No,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Dodge,
That
dip,
wasn't it.
dive, weave, and dodge.
and no, it was all D's. I think.
Something like that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, but yeah, it's clean. I think we're gonna play it. Brennan, are you gonna play it?
Honestly, yeah, probably. I feel like, okay, well, I've been burned before with early access games, so I may give it a day or two.
Yeah, we had to hear about that one.
This is
Yeah,
one I'm gonna keep my eye on it as it's going through early access. But it is one I will keep my eye on.
I just want to know how long it takes me to build one of those big ass fancy houses. Cause like if it takes me 400 years, then I might have to rethink my life a little bit. But we are now going to take it from a deserted island to the future and up into space. We're going to now talk about Beyond a Steel Sky. It's a single player sci-fi adventure game developed by Revolution Software and published by Microids. I'm going to assume that's how you pronounce that. Microids?
droids. Yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
assuming microids.
Words are hard. It's coming out on the Switch, PS4, and Xbox One, so no new gen. It releases on November 30th. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I thought this game was really cool. It sounded pretty awesome, and I was like, oh yeah, that's neat. I know absolutely nothing about this game.
Yeah, before we said we're gonna look at this game, I had never heard of this before.
Yeah, I saw it on the list of games that said that it was coming out, and hold on. How the wait, what? Oh, hold on. Record scratch. Pause. 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 The game has already released on PC for anybody wondering. It came out last year on Windows on July 16th. So the game is playable right now, but if you'd like to play it on consoles, you certainly can do that this November. Now, the game seems like it does have some positive review scores, at least for the PC version, but we aren't going to talk about those because honestly, until I just read this article, we thought this was a brand new release. So we won't talk about the PS5 or the not the PS5, the PC experience. We're just going to talk about what we think this game is. That is our bad. But anyway, so this game is set 10 years after the events of the 1994 video game Beneath a Steel Sky. You play as Robert Foster as he finds himself returning to Union City on the hunt for a kidnapped child, only to learn the city's new utopia is not what it appears to be. So if you haven't played that game back from 1994, I am so sorry. I hope that there's a recap, but it just seems cool. It looks cool. It looks cool.
Yeah, we're discussing this game before the podcast, before we started recording, and we did agree. Like it looks like Borderlands without guns.
Has a very anime art style, like comic booky.
But you know,
Yeah, to be honest,
cause oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I was just gonna comment on the art style. Like, it's pretty unique because it looks cel shaded, but at the same time, it's not. Like Haley said, it's very comic book esque.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, that was all I have to say about that.
yeah. That's what I was gonna talk about. Is it does look like it plays like a comic book. And because it seems like a 3D point and click. Because the gameplay I saw, it was the characters trying to get into a truck and they need to figure out how to do it. So they were going back, talking to a guy, and just trying to go back and forth to try to figure out how to get into the truck. Um, so I feel this is one of those games where it's going to be narrative heavy, and because like I said, I've never heard of this before. I didn't even know it was on PC before today. Um, but this seems like one of those games where it's going to be a nice, slow, patient kind of experience.
Yeah,
Uh,
again, this just looks like, again, I compare every point and click game to any Telltale game that I've ever played just because it's the only basis of comparison that I have. But I don't know, this just seems interesting. Like, again, not only the art style, but I mean, I'm also just a sucker for the cyberpunk aesthetic. Like, and I feel like this does it pretty well, just from trailers, stuff that we've read and seen so far. Not as gritty as maybe Cyberpunk 2077, but certainly a bit brighter. Um, and yeah, again, if it is because it is a point and click game, like Mike said, it probably will also feel like you're playing a comic book in the way that The Walking Dead from Telltale felt like you were playing through the comic book in a way, which is really cool. Like, again, so after Telltale's revival of the point and click genre, I feel like people, so it is rather niche, I'd say. But the people that like it really, really like it.
IGN has a Beyond a Steel Sky first look that includes a little bit of gameplay of it, and you get to pick dialogue options, and yeah, it's kind of like it reminds me of a Telltale game. And I don't want to, like Brendan said, I don't want to sit here and make those references, but that's what it is, walking around, making those choices, making dialogue options, trying to figure out how to do something by interacting with your environment. And the art style is very, 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 very comic book esque, which I think is pretty cool. I'm just hoping that it's sort of easy to pick up on just because this is a sequel to a 1994 game which came out before I was even born. So I feel like that's a little bit of a ballsy move, just because who the fuck is going to remember that game if you weren't born back then? So it's strange that you're gonna make a sequel to it and not just make a whole new game within that universe, which I don't know how much of a direct sequel it actually is. So
From what I'm seeing, it follows the same protagonist.
if that's all it does, then I think it'll be easy for people of this generation to hop into. Uh,
Yeah.
as long as they actually give him some background story and uh, don't make the player rely on looking up anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, from it being a sequel to a game as old as, the Beneath the Steel Sky is, I would feel that, this does need an introduction before people play it.
Yeah. Because nobody's gonna, even if you were born back then and you played that one back then, you can't tell me you remember that game from all the way back then. You can't. You can't. It's been 27 years probably. So breathe
Almost,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. But I think this is really cool. Like I said, we didn't even know it came out on PC until I read that article. That tells you how much under the radar this game was. So I'm very curious. I mean, I don't think reviews are going to be that far off from what they said for the PC, but we'll have to see if they make any changes, if they do anything differently. Probably not, but again, I think it's very interesting. Also, they're not releasing it on next gen as of yet. Very curious to understand why that is. Could potentially just be money, but we shall see.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to yawn. Oh my gosh. But
Need more oxygen.
yeah, I need my brain is there's only so much. I have a very slim section in my brain that allows me to just rip on Ubisoft for a solid like 10 minutes, and after doing that it just takes a lot out of me, so I'm slowly recharging that part of my brain while my wallet cries because I just give all my money to Ubisoft and then I just sit here and talk about how shit they are. But we are now going to kick it over to the Motley 4 News Corner. This is what we have decided to rename our Reddit little Reddit section. And today's news caption is Sony has formed the PlayStation PC label for its PC gaming push. This article comes from Video Game Chronicles, posted by Andy Robinson. Now, this talks about how PlayStation is pushing their games to PC. We see that right now with Horizon Zero Dawn came out in August. Days Gone came out in May. We have God of War coming out next year to PC as well. Uncharted is also making the jump next year as well, and Sackboy, it seems. So PlayStation is doing what everybody else is doing. Well, not everybody else, but they're taking after Microsoft and sticking their games on PC. And I am going to say that I believe they are doing this because one, money, and you can't tell me I'm wrong.
I'm
I think,
excited.
yeah. I think for this, they have to start competing with Microsoft. If you get Game Pass for PC, you can play basically anything coming out on the PlayStation Series X, including the upcoming Halo game. So I think for PlayStation, this would be kind of smart to start putting their stuff on PC. Especially, with PS5s being as scarce as they've become. Now everybody's able to play, games coming out on that console. So if they put those games on PC, they'll have a much wider audience to, be able to check out their games. Because like God of War coming to PC, I'm probably gonna buy that now because it's gonna be on PC and I don't have a PS5.
I think the one thing that's very interesting is They say there's an article below that, and the headline for that article reads, Ex PlayStation boss doesn't think Sony will ever do a day one PC release. And you see that right now where they're taking the time to put these games onto PC. So I feel like, their console will always come first. It's sort of going to be like a timed exclusive, basically, where people who have PlayStation will get it for 6 months to a year, and then they'll release it on whatever they decide to call their library or subscription service. And I think, not to get off topic, I think that's another point right there is, how is this going to work? At least, how does it already work? Is it going to be a subscription service like Game Pass, or is it just going to be you can just buy each individual game and play that on PC?
So, I mean, I'm just extrapolating from what they've done previously, but to me, and ideally, this essentially just means that more games will end up being timed exclusives, where they'll be on the PlayStation for about a year or two, and then pretty much just like maybe when sales die down or interest is kind of at a low, then they realize, okay, well, we'll just port it over to PC, and everyone that wanted to play it who couldn't, they can now play it, and the developer makes a little bit of extra money. I hope it's not a subscription service like Game Pass, only because, again, I don't know. I have kind of mixed feelings about Game Pass. Like, I personally like it, the idea of it, but I don't know. When I subscribed to it, I felt like I only really subscribed to it for like one or two specific games that I wanted to try out and didn't really care for like 99% of the library. So I don't necessarily want to see Sony do that here. Ideally, I would just want to see their big hitters finally come to PC, a year, 2 years, whatever it takes after. Because I don't know, it's been pretty popular in recent years just to have ports come to PC in general. So it doesn't hurt, I feel like PC ports are probably pretty inexpensive nowadays, especially because as consoles start to, rival the power of most modern day PCs now, 4K, 60 frames per second. It's not terribly difficult to make a port. I'm not 100% certain about that. But again, it is just an easy way for developers to make a quick extra buck on the side once they've noticed that sales have started dying down. And even again, like, sure, maybe they don't want to pay Sony a percentage of whatever they're making. Maybe I don't really understand or know the numbers behind that at all. I imagine that most developers have to give a percentage of their profit to Sony as they would Steam, just to have it listed on the storefront. I don't know if the numbers are comparable at all, but not being a slave, not a slave, but not tying yourself down to one publisher isn't necessarily a bad thing to me. Unless you're going Epic, in which case I don't want to play your PlayStation exclusive. I'm sorry. Steam or bust. Steam or bust.
I I don't know. I feel like Sony is going to do the Sony thing, and they are going to make this a service. I feel like it's going to be you have to buy each game individually, because that just screams Sony to me. So I kind of already see that as a downfall if they do go that way, especially with how cheap Game Pass is. So for if you want it for your console or your PC, it's $10 a month. It's technically $9.99, but take the penny and just make it 10.
I was gonna say give or take a penny.
Yeah. And then there's Ultimate, which is $15 a month or $14,999, and you get everything that comes with either subscription for console or PC. You get to play games from the cloud. You get exclusive member discounts and deals, free perks, including in-game content and partner offers. But it also includes Xbox Live Gold, which includes deals with Gold, games with Gold, and console multiplayer. And then you also get the EA Play, which features a library of top Electronic Arts titles on console and PC, exclusive rewards, and member only content. So, I mean, the best deal out of both of those is definitely the ultimate bundle. If you get it on PC, Game Pass on PC, you still get EA Play, but you only get to play those titles on PC. And then if you get it for a console, you don't get EA Play at all. So I feel like Sony would have a hard time making it a streaming service or a gaming service because it's just not how I see Sony. This is what I expect out of Xbox and Microsoft, which also Backbone is on Xbox Game Pass. Is like right on like the home screen, and that's really cool because I'm playing that game and it's super fun. Anyway, sorry, shout out to the developer of Backbone because that game has gorgeous artwork. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but I don't see Sony as a service or a games for service or games for subscription service. I feel like Microsoft has always been that way. That's the way that they've always leaned. So I really feel like Sony is going to make this a you have to buy these games individually. But also, this is nice because I know a lot of people who aren't a big fan of the PlayStation console itself, but still want to play PlayStation games. So bringing these games to PC, I feel like will definitely open up Sony to a whole new group of gamers who want to play narrative driven games, but who just don't like the console for some reason. So I think it'll be great for those people. It's going to make Sony a lot of money, I really feel. And I'm not surprised that they're the last, sort of like the last one to come to the PC table because I feel like they've held out for as long as they could. And then they were just like, you know what? Like, nobody can get their hands on a PS5. Why, like, this is doing really well for Microsoft. Why don't we do it too? So I think this is honestly going to be really fucking popular, and I think it's a really great move for Sony. And of course, they're going to still push the PlayStation, i.e. by making it timed exclusive.
Yeah, honestly agree that this is a good move. I don't see how this would be a bad move, honestly. Bringing more experiences to more people, I don't really see how that's a bad move at all. And again, because it's easier to port, the company's not losing money. To me, this is a win-win-win for everyone.
The article also states that PlayStation recently acquired, I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, but Nix's software, which is best known for its work on the PC versions of Square Enix properties, including Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Hitman, and Thief. So, I mean, they've already acquired the ability to port their games to PC, so it seems like Sony is definitely taking this seriously and they are giving it their all when it comes to making their games the best that there is on this new frontier for them. But also it's like, and I sort of made this point before, nowadays it's everybody has some sort of access to a laptop or some sort of desktop PC. Whether it can run these games, that's a whole different story. But
Well, that's what. Oh,
go
I was gonna
ahead.
say I was about to say that's why it'd be wise if Sony does cloud gaming. Um, I have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and I was able to play more demanding games, on my phone because I was streaming it instead of having my phone itself run the game. So I feel that if they do cloud gaming, that can really help. Again, people who don't have a built-up PC to be running these games, at optimal performance, they can stream it and be able to still play it, on their PC.
And again, that just makes it a lot more accessible because it's easier for me to pay $15 a month or so, or maybe they discount the game so it's $30 or a game. I mean, still, if they want to pay $60, it's still easier for me to spend that money and play it on the rickety old laptop that I have than spend $2,000 on a gaming PC or $500 on a PS5 that is hard to come by at this moment. So going this route is just smart. Again, more money for Sony. Like I said, I think they tried to stick it out as far as long as they could. But when it boils it down to it, they're gonna make a bunch of money off of this, and I say claps for them. I think it's just a little bit silly that they didn't see it sooner. But again, it seems like PlayStation has always, or at least Sony has always been very hesitant when it comes to doing anything PC related because from reading past articles and past conferences and stuff like that, it seems like Sony is the main like wall when it comes to cross-platform gaming. So hopefully this also, if they see how well their games are doing, maybe this will open them up to be a little bit more interested in cross-platform gaming. So yeah. Let's kick it over to a super quick final thoughts on today's episode where we harped on hating Ubisoft because they don't know how to make a political statement or if they just want to sit there and just joke about things. My absolute love for Sony and everything that they have to do, and how we all just want to sit on a little deserted island.
Yeah, I'm excited as hell for Lem's Island. I can't wait. I haven't been this excited about an indie game in God knows how long.
Like a month.
No. Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I was really excited about Starmancer. Shit.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Maybe before that though? I don't know.
Mike, what about you?
Yeah, if you got a Switch, pick up some Shin Megami Tensei 5. Even if you've never played a JRPG, finally take a dive into the genre and experience what, people like me have been enjoying for 20 years.
And I have nothing else to say because honestly, I've said all of that I had to say today. I think everybody should pick up Lens Island, and I think it will be super cool. And maybe we'll figure out what Beyond the Steel Sky is about because honestly, I don't know what's going on here anymore. But to keep me from rambling and before I go insane from hosting all these podcasts every month, it is your girl Haley with the pre-review crew signing off for the episode of October and November 2021. Come back next month to see how the games that we talked about for November do when we review them. We preview some new games coming out for December, and we tell you how you should waste more of your money. I hope you have a great day, evening, night, wherever you are, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Goodbye.